hope this works. Ooh. Welcome. Welcome. Hold on, brief sidebar before I even start the books. I got some new records today and I gotta show somebody, and you guys are the unlucky participants that gotta see it. Alright, first one, probably the greatest woman to ever make music, in my opinion, but not really. But I got Tidal by Fiona Apple. Probably my greatest song of all time. Top 5 at worst. And then I got a second copy of Man on the Moon 2 by Kid Cudi. This album changed my life, but I already had one, but I want to frame one. I want to start like frames of records, and I decided to get this one again. Alright, let's get to the books now, because that's why this video is being made. Before we get to anything, love you guys for watching this video. I cannot thank you guys enough. And this is going to be every book that I read in 2024. And the cool part about that is that I started reading like 4 months ago. So not even half a year ago. This is my first real like collective like look back at what I've read, and I'm super excited about it. I'm kind of proud of myself. I mean, this looks like a lot, and honestly, it might be a lot, to be honest with you. But I think there's a lot of short reads in here. There's some poetry books, like some short story books that I haven't read fully. But this is the general gist of what I read, and I'm super proud of myself. I'm definitely gonna make a video on like how to get into reading. Actually, let me not even say it like that, because I'm not an expert or anything, but I'm gonna say how I got into reading, why I love it so much, why I think everyone should read, a bunch of stuff like that. Like, I gotta put that in the video. And I'm also gonna do another video about my favorite books of the year. Like, I'm actually gonna try and rank, even though I don't like ranking art, I'm gonna try and do my best to rank it. But this is gonna be more about just the books that I read, just all of them, just the names, quick synopsises, and then if I recommend it or not. Just a cool way to look back at what I read in 2024. But I'm gonna try not to ramble too much in the end of the video, because I'll talk for an hour and then I will never get to the actual meat of the video. I love you guys for watching this video sincerely. Thank you guys so much. Alright, so I want to start with these 3 books. Now, these 3 books are not books that I read in my journey that I would consider when I started really reading. Like, I think I've always wanted to inherently read. So I started reading some small stuff probably like early this year, like January, and then a little bit of last year, like December. That's kind of when I started just trying to pick up books. And I started with The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which was, I don't know, this is not the copy that I read out of. I think I just got this one from Amazon. And when I first read it, since I wasn't really adept to reading and knowing that there's symbolism, metaphors, and stuff that they're really trying to say through the words they're saying. So I was just reading it, kind of just words on paper. And then now that I've read more, I went back and read some excerpts from The Art of War, I think give or take a month ago, and I got even more out of it than I did the first time. And I think this book's just a really good, it almost rides the line of self-help more than it does philosophy or overall narrative. It's just, to me, when I read it, a lot of people discredit it for saying looking at everything in life like a war or a battle is not a good thing. But that's not what I got from the book. Whenever I was reading it, I definitely got more of, like 80% of the book was more pacifist, in my opinion. Like, it was talking more about strategy and like knowing your enemy and how to conquer the enemy. And if you take that philosophy and put it into your own life, and you see everything as a sort of battle you gotta conquer and like face, I definitely think you'll just be more efficient in life if you look at everything like, I have to conquer this, instead of just being, I gotta do this today. Just a small mindset tweak, but I really enjoyed the book. I think everyone should read it. The next book rides a thin line, and you're gonna see a theme with these books, because once I read The Art of War, I just wanted to get into more Eastern thinkers and philosophers. Even though I didn't know that's what I was doing, per se, it was more of like, I just enjoy Art of War and like the more Asian style of writing. And I was like, let me just get into more Eastern thinkers. So next book I got was Book of Five Rings by Minamoto Musashi, who I have a tattoo of right here. He's a samurai. But this book kind of took what Art of War did, and even like it was even more dense. Like, I felt like it just got deeper into the strategy aspect, and I really enjoyed that. Like, for example, it would say stuff like brace for impact, or draw your sword, like march your allies. And if you read it just words on paper, it was just talking about strategy and war. But if you read it much more in the eyes of like a thinker, it's so much more you can get out of it. And I think it's a powerful book. It's on the same tier as Art of War, but I give it the edge. And something that I really enjoy from this book that I think about to this day is called The Spirit of the Thing Itself, which is something that was coined by Minamoto Musashi. It's one of my favorite things that I've read in any book, honestly, when it comes to just concepts. Like The Will to Power by Nietzsche, that's specific. Not the book, the book too, but The Will to Power itself, which is like the indubitable, like driving will, human spirit that we have. That's a really good one too. But I think The Spirit of the Thing Itself is probably one of my favorite concepts. And basically what it is saying, like, let's say you want to play basketball. The spirit of the thing itself would be it's like giving life to the concept of basketball. And it's saying if you give your all to basketball, if you work hard with basketball, it'll reward you because it's like a living thing. The basketball, the concept is a living thing that'll reward you if you put the work in. And I don't believe that's a thing, but it's just a more conceptual thing that I really enjoy. And I was like, that's a cool way to look at approaching life. Really enjoyed this book. Definitely pick it up. Next one I got is The Endless Confucius, which is a book that I need to revisit. Like when I first read it, I finished the book, but it was kind of just, I finished it because I hate quitting things. And I was like, I'm not going to DNF it. But I really didn't get out of it what I wanted to. But I remember reading it and I was like, it was talking a lot about it's split into 20 books. It's like book 1, book 2, book 3. And the first 7 or so books all talk about rhetoric and how to talk to people. Like just more like a way to approach other people, like human connections. But after that, it got into more like ethical and moral values and philosophies. And I don't think I was ready to read that then. So I didn't really get what I needed to get out of it. So I plan on rereading this soon. But I would say if anyone wants to read this, please do. Because I remember, like now looking back on it, even some small stuff I do remember, I do think I would enjoy it way more to now. Like it was just cool writing the whole book with like people asking questions amongst themselves and then like working their way up to like talking to people that are smarter and smarter and smarter throughout the book. And then the end of the book would just be Confucius speaking. So like they would build up to like the actual like, let's talk to these other people, then get to the big dog. It was just cool writing. If you see it, definitely pick it up. Alright, next stack. Alright, so this next book, I probably should have started with, technically I am starting with it. But the first book I read to get into reading was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is the book that started it all for me, the book that made me get every book that I have now. Made me just fall in love with literature. And then this is the book that made me realize like, there's a different level here. Like I read, like when I was younger, I read Percy Jackson, I read Hunger Games, obviously. Like stuff like that. And not to knock on those. I think those are great series as well. But when I read Dorian Gray, it was like, it gave me the shift of there's a level to writing. I know why it's a classic. It was my first book that I read. I think I read this in like 2-3 days. As my first book, I was pushing through it. I was like, yo, this is amazing. Like, I don't want to stop. Like, it was like every time I want to put the book down, Dorian or Henry would say something crazy that would just drew me right back in. I absolutely love it. And I think Oscar Wilde, I'll get into it later on in the video, but how I see writers is because, you know, I'm a new reader, so I don't know all the words or correct ways to phrase it. But I think people like Kafka, Morrison, Machiavelli, they're more like pencil drawers when it comes to their art. And then people like Oscar Wilde, Ray Bradbury, Tolstoy, they're more like abstract painters when it comes to their writing style. Not to say one is better than the other, because a pencil drawing at its best is just as good as a painting at its best. But I just think there's different ways to look at it. And when reading it, I didn't have anything to compare like Oscar's writing style to, so I was like, yo, this is the best thing ever. I'm absolutely, like, I was head over heels with it. And you're gonna see later on in the video, but philosophy is like definitely my favorite genre when it comes to reading. And that is because of this book, more specifically because of Lord Henry. And when I first read this, like, I had never seen anyone writing like that or talking the way he was. Like, a lot of the Eastern thinkers are much more peaceful and calm when it comes to their philosophies and their ways of thinking. And I had never seen, like, almost argumentative, like, aggressive philosophy when it comes to, not aggressive as in, like, violent, but, like, challenging philosophy. And when Henry was speaking, it was like, yo, what is he saying and where is he getting this from? Which led me down a rabbit hole of just getting into philosophy and really seeing that whole world open up. I always gotta give credit to this book. It's actually amazing. Brief synopsis is about a man named Dorian who's a young aristocrat, very handsome, and everyone just tells him all these great things. But Lord Henry says one thing to him that kind of switches his mindset, and that youth is all you have. So then he sees this painting of him, and he gets jealous of the painting, saying, this will be forever young, and I will age. So he makes a deal with whatever you think he made a deal with. And then his sins and moral and just will reflect on the painting and not him. So the painting will age and get disgusting and ugly, and he will never age. And it just shows the implications and consequences that are inevitable when it comes to vanity, being pompous, super arrogant. Like, it just shows the consequences of that. And it's one of the best commentaries I've seen when it comes to that. Like, the themes were just so well done in this book, and I absolutely love it. I just got Importance of Being Earnest and Woman of No Importance by Oscar Wilde, the plays. I have to read those soon, but please pick this up. Alright, next one I got here, actually I'm going to do these two at the same time. But I got two Steinbecks here. I got The Pearl and Of Mice and Men. I'll do The Pearl first. Pearl's about Kino, he's a pearl diver. And he sees a pearl that could change his life and his whole village's life. And all the villages, all pearl divers as well. So it's their whole economy is based on pearl diving. And to me, when I read it, because I'll get into it a little bit later, but I got that it was like a commentary, or it was definitely driven by the theme of envy jealousy and what that can do to a society that needs one thing. Like whenever he found his perfect as the moon, which is said in the book, Pearl, like it just showed the inevitable violence that came with it. Like I think Kino knew, in the beginning of the book, Kino knew that something was going to happen, but it was like he wanted to see the good in everyone around him, but he knew it was going to be bad. Absolutely loved it. I think this book's really good. The one thing I would say about this book is that I need to form a better political worldview because I'll get into it in probably another video, but I'm trying to just seek a lot of knowledge right now, and I'm trying to break down everything I have and build up again. So I'm trying to develop a better worldview when it comes to politics, but if I had a better political background, I think I would have got even more out of this book because I think there's some stuff I missed in it because I'm not politically sound. Like someone that's good at getting more societal and political themes from books, they would kill this book, and I need to get better with that. So whenever I do that, I'm gonna come back to this book and do a whole nother kind of review on it. But definitely like the book for what it was. It was amazing. But Elf, Mice, and Men, I finished this and then I watched the I think 1992 movie. I think it's 92. I don't know. I'll probably put it in the video. But I watched the movie probably an hour after I read the book. Crazy book, crazy movie. The one thing that I would say about this book, other than that, the ending, so sad. One of the first books that really gave me a real tearjerker. I was like, oof, that hurt. But the one thing I want to talk about with this book is definitely just the theme of like leaning on one another and like the need for companionship and friendship. Because George and Lenny, I think it's the only book that I've read that has a real like there's obviously friendships and relationships in other books that I've read, but they're not highlighted the way George and Lenny's was in this book. Like it was so evidently clear from the beginning of the book that Lenny so much heavily relied on George. But it was almost alluded to that George didn't really need Lenny enough. Like whenever Lenny would say something like, "Do you like want me to leave?" George would be like, "No, I don't," and be like sarcastic about it. Like he would insinuate that he doesn't need Lenny. But whenever it unfolds and it really gets to the end of the book, we really see that George needed Lenny as much as Lenny needed him. But he was like, he had a Napoleon complex. He was really like, he wasn't really vain, but it was more of like he was being stubborn and didn't really want to see it. And I see why everyone loves this book. It was one of the first books that I read that I knew was like, it was a high school read that I didn't really read in high school. Like one of those kind of dynamics, but I really enjoyed it. Please read it. The next book I hear is Discourse on Method by Descartes. But this is one of the first philosophy books that I picked up. The first one was Plato's Republic, which is going to be later on in this video. But Discourse on Method was the first one that really opened my eyes to rationalism. Like one of his more focal philosophies is that he believes that humans can trust their senses because God gave it to them. And he was like, which is kind of weird to me because rationalists usually don't believe in God per se. Or they believe in some kind of higher power, but maybe not a certain God. It's weird. But reading it was super interesting. I definitely want to go back and read it some more now that I've read more philosophy, so I could talk about it more in depth. But I remember initially picking it up because it had, for one, I saw Descartes' name and I knew who he was. But for two, it was because it had the most famous quote ever in philosophy, which is, I think, therefore I am. And I was like, okay, if that's in here, this whole book is probably crazy. I absolutely loved it. If you want to pick this up, definitely go pick it up. You'll enjoy it. Next book is Tao Te Ching, which is by Lao Tzu. I think that's how you say it. But it's another Eastern philosophy kind of book. But this is not a book that I read like in totality. I kind of just picked apart at it. But here's, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's more of like excerpts in the book. Like it's not really full pages. There was a lot of little quotables on here that I really enjoyed. And it's also like very calming. When I was reading it, it was more of like a tranquility kind of feeling. I was reading it and I see how people can kind of garner peace from this, or like read it and really feel at peace. And I don't subscribe to any Eastern religions, but I do really like appreciate a lot of Taoist and Buddhist like thoughts because it's all so calming, and they're trying to reach enlightenment, which is ultimate peace. So their whole life is being built on doing things that can cause peace for you and everyone around you. Just really calming stuff. I really enjoyed it. I might have a whole section of next year where I reread all of the early Eastern thinkers and philosophers I really didn't appreciate the way I should have when I first started reading. Because I want to go back and really read these again and really digest them because I really enjoy Eastern stuff, but I don't remember too much about it except from Book of Five Rings and Art of War. So I might do a whole little section of that next year. Something that was cool in this book that I do remember is it talked about what's more important, like your spirit or fame. And I remember a lot of the book allows you to think. It will give you like something like that, and then give you probably a little guidance in your thought process, and then it would just let you think for the rest of the page. Something else that was in here was also, it was talking about like, speaking little is natural, something cool like that. Like, there's a lot of small little things you can take from this book. Definitely pick it up if you see it. The next book here is not really a book, but it's Kafka short stories, who, Cool. I don't even want to get into it yet. I can talk for hours on just Kafka alone. Hold on, I gotta show you guys the tattoo I have. Can you guys see this? Hopefully you can. I got a Kafka tattoo. Kafka was the first real writer to make me feel like I was seen, which I know, depressing, kind of bleak. I'm okay. But nah, on a real note, when I was reading it, I felt like he was just, it was almost like a comforting bleakness, like sepia tone kind of writing. And I was reading it and I was like, there's something different about him. It's like the way he would describe things, or just, it was so beautiful to me. And I haven't read Castle or America, but I've read enough of Trial to talk about it. So whenever I read the other, his more bigger works, my opinion on this may change. But I would say his prose fits a short story setting so much better than it would fit maybe a full-length novel. Because Kafka's writing style to me is really punchy. Like, it has a lot of like 3 to 4 word sentences, very short paragraphs, like over and over again. That if it's on a full-length novel, I could see someone having a critique of them getting bored or it's super boring. Like, I can see that. Even though I don't really agree, I can see it. But on a short story, I think it doesn't overstay its welcome. And it's a perfect amount of like punchiness to get you like right where I want you. So perfect. And I haven't read this full book. I've read, actually pretty much I have. I've read Investigations of a Dog, The Burrows, In the Penal Colony, which is top 5 short stories ever. Metamorphosis, which is the magnum opus. I read The Refusal, Great Wall of China. I've pretty much read all these books. There's probably 1 or 2 I haven't read in this. But Kafka's probably in my top 3 favorite writers ever. I might do that video as well. But Kafka's, if not he's number 1 some days, honestly. Have to love Kafka. And my favorite, I would say, from this book, everyone says Metamorphosis, but I may go Penal Colony. I don't know if I'm trying to be different or not, though. I might say Metamorphosis just to say Metamorphosis, but Penal Colony is really good as well. Read both of those, and then read all this stuff. Next one I got here is Plato's Republic. So this was the first philosophy book that I read after reading Dorian Gray. I was like, I need to find something that was speaking the way Henry was. And I absolutely love Plato's Republic. It was just so profound. The crazy part about it, this book probably took me the longest to read, like, out of any book that I've ever read. Like, obviously outside of the books that are just longer in like length, but when it comes to like proportionally, like page number and stuff like that, this book took me the longest to read because I felt like when I was reading it, I'm like, I don't want to miss anything. My first philosophy book, I was like, yo, like, I was so deep into the book, it was crazy. I just recently got a better copy of this. This copy's kind of small, like my hands are kind of big for it. But I just got the Barnes & Noble Classic version of it, and I heard it has some more notes in the beginning and end, so I might reread Republic with that copy. But some things I want to mention is that I love the more dialogue, conversational kind of aspect when it came to it. Like, I haven't read Symposium fully. I haven't, but I haven't read fully. I haven't read Gorgias, Life of Socrates. I haven't read any other Plato work, but Republic was like, I need to find more Plato because I heard he's probably the GOAT when it comes to philosophy. And it's just, I love the conversational aspect. So I got to get Socrates and Plato because I heard they're both like that. And this book also kind of formed like more American democracy. I definitely can see the influence when it comes to, like, I can definitely see like the set stones from this book that are in society now. And I think the analogy of the cave is probably, like I said, the will to power, and then the spirit of the thing itself from Book of Five Rings. I think the analogy of the cave is probably another concept I have. That's probably one of my favorite concepts in any book. Please pick this up. You'll enjoy it. If you like philosophy, this is where I started at. I might do a philosophy, actually I need to do a philosophy video because I feel like I want to talk more about these philosophy books. But I don't want to make this video 4 hours long. So I might do a philosophy video down the line. Or next video, honestly. But please pick this up. Alright, next book I got here, Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. Now, I told myself I wasn't going to start ranking books in this video because I'm going to do like a top 15 books I've read this year where I try and really rank the books. But for this book, I have to say something about it because I think this is probably my favorite book of all time some days. You're going to see a whole trend when it comes to the books I enjoy, but like, I'm just a big fan of sad media. All my favorite movies are sad, like Taxi Driver, Shutter Island, The Hours, like all my favorite movies are sad. Frank Ocean, Brent Fires are all my favorite artists. Just a bunch of sad, more mellow stuff. But Frankenstein just captured these hard topics really well, like neglection, alienation. Those are 2 topics that are insanely hard to conceptualize into words. And then how she did it was like, I felt like I was living with the monster. And that's super hard to do because how do you really, if you really think about it, I know it sounds crazy on paper, but if you really think about how hard it would be to capture an emotion like neglection and alienation, like how do you even conceptualize something like that? Like, it's not like saying happiness or confusion or something that's not saying easier per se, but something more common to feel. I feel like the topics she touched on in this book are like just hard topics, and it was so well done. And another big theme in this book was playing God, and that was from obviously Frankenstein, the Doctor. Like just a whole bunch of stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I also have I think I have 3 copies of this book actually. But this one has the 1818 text, so I read out of this one, but I have a better copy someone sent me that I look at. I have it on my shelf, like my trophy copy. But please, please, please read Frankenstein. Next book I got here is Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury. So this is back to what I was saying about, who was I saying it about? Oh, Oscar Wilde. Bradbury is probably even better. I don't think he's a better writer than Wilde, but I think he's better at what I'm about to say. Like when it came to just painting these vivid pictures, he's probably the best at that I've read. So obviously I read this in high school, but I read it again in my reading journey because I didn't really remember anything but that they burned books in it. And I was blown away with how he was personifying everything. Like it felt like chairs and walls had like minds of their own. It was like everything was a part of the world. Like he would have like, and I feel this can also be a negative to some people, but for me I really enjoyed it. But he would have a whole sentence of like describing how a wall felt or describing how a chair felt. And I was like, okay, that's insane. This book also gave me one of my least favorite characters of all time, and one of my favorite characters of all time. One of my least favorite characters of all time, if not my least favorite, is Mildred, Montag's wife. Hated her. But my favorite character, probably my top 5, is Clarice. Love Clarice's character. She definitely went too early, honestly. I'm mad about that. But I really enjoyed when she was there. She was a spark for Montag, and it really started the whole book. And the cool thing I want to touch on in this book is it's a specific part, but it was when Captain Beatty and Montag were arguing, and it reminded me of scripture. Like in scripture, there's Jesus and Satan were arguing with words. It was like they were arguing with scripture, and it felt like a verbal like war. And when I was reading that specific scene in 451, it was like Captain Beatty was like, because Captain Beatty was reciting like quotes and verses from these other books, and he was like almost using them as ammunition to Montag. Just reminded me of how it was in scripture. It was so cool. But please read this. You probably read it before, but I promise you read it again, you'll get even more out of it. Next book I got here is the first set of discourses from Rousseau. These were his discourses about the social contract, which he wrote before this, obviously. This is just a cool read. Probably one of my, it's like lower on the list of my philosophy reads that I've read this year, but it was still really good. I feel like if you like the social contract, or you get some value out of that, reading these discourses will definitely give you something else to read. Like, you know, just something else to kind of go with the social contract. Like, it was cool to see someone write something that profound and then have discourses on it talking about kind of what he would have changed, how it affects society, just cool stuff like that. Quick little review on it, but it was really good. When I do the philosophy like video, when I talk about these books that I really read in depth, like that might be an hour-long video, honestly. But I'll go more in depth on the philosophy reads, because I feel like I'm not doing them justice in this video. But I wanted to make it relatively shorter. But next two are 2 quick short reads, Candide by Voltaire and then Ethan Frome, Edith Wharton. Candide was the first book that really made me audibly laugh while reading, which was super surprising to me because Voltaire's an Enlightenment writer, so I never thought that I would get any kind of comical stuff from it. Like, I went into it expecting some serious book, like some serious, super serious book. And even though it was comical, it wasn't like funny, but it was like some satire and comics in it. It still has some profound stuff. Like, you could probably talk about Candide like really deep with someone that's also read it. No one I know has read this book, so unfortunately I haven't had that conversation yet. But basically it's about Candide, who's a young boy. He goes out into the world and he's like wide-eyed, super like eager to see the world. And then someone comes to him with a philosophy saying everything in the world is good, the world's inherently good, just like find the good in the world. And then he goes out to the world and sees that that's not how it is. There's inherent wrongs, bad things in the world happen to him, happen to people around him, like, and it's how he copes with that, how a young man would cope with that. Like, you could really get into some deep topics like objective truth, inherent wrongs, like some really like good and evil kind of things, like great stuff you could really get into with this book. And it's comical, and it's a short Enlightenment reader. Voltaire, like, please pick it up. Great read. Now, Ethan Frome is also another great short read. I think it's like 80 pages. And I'm gonna show you guys real quick. I lied, it's like 100 or so pages, but look how like it was like indented. Like, it's like a short kind of text on the page. Like, I think I read this in like 3 or 4 hours, honestly. Probably shorter. But this is the only review or book that I would say when I read it, I felt like it's much better to go into this book blind. Because I went into it blind. I didn't know a single thing about it, but I got so much more out of it because I didn't know anything. And ever since this book, this is the book that really made me have this mindset. But ever since Ethan Frome, I've never read a synopsis again, or at least tried not to. Because I was like, yo, going into this blind is way better. I don't know anything. But things I will say, you'll love Edith's writing style. I really love Zini's character. Just pay attention to what Zini and Ethan are thinking. Like, just a lot of like small stuff like that. But just go into it blind. You'll love it. It's a short read. You'll probably be done in 2 hours. Pick it up, please. Sidebar, I also just got Age of Innocence. I haven't read it yet, but I really love Edith's writing style, so I gotta read it. Next book I got here, well, actually I'll just do both of these, but it's 2 philosophy reads. I got both these as Consolation of Philosophy, and I got The Confessions by Rousseau, which is not philosophy, but it's a philosopher talking about his life. Now, both these Consolation of Philosophy is amazing book. It was probably one of the earlier philosophy books I've read, but it's one of the earliest ones that I remember everything about. Like, I gotta revisit Analects, Republic, The Prince, but this is the first book that I read, and I was like, everything I had in here, I wrote it down on a notebook. I was like, yo, this is amazing. Like, just talking about in the book a little bit, it talks a lot about like a lot of contrasts, like fate versus free will, good and evil, like just like a lot of black and white topics that are like he goes really deep into, and just a lot of real commentaries on like just life itself conceptually. I didn't see any like main focal theme in the book really. It was just much more of like a overview on I'm a smart man giving you some philosophy. But that's just about the book. Now, about like Bothes himself, it was super cool. Like, he was literally, for one, he was in prison writing this, and I was like, okay, that's already crazy. And not just in prison, he was like about to be executed on some crazy stuff. And then something else super cool about it, because I'm a devout Christian, and Bothes was also Christian. But in this book, he draws from like a lot of Greek myth and a lot of Greek ideology. Like, I'm pretty sure he quotes Ovid in this book. Ovid, he wrote Metamorphoses, which is like a lot of Greek myths, like Athena and Arachne and a lot of stuff like that. But the reason why that's cool to me is because I'm a Christian as well, but I'm also fascinated with like Greek mythology and stuff like that. Like, I can talk about it I have Athena tatted right here. I absolutely love Greek mythology. I can talk about it forever. So it was just cool for me to like go into a dense read like this and kind of know the references. Like, it was so cool to me. Really enjoyed it. Please pick this up. Now, Confessions was a super good book as well. And when it came to Rousseau, the one thing I would say about him is that he's super arrogant. And the thing is that's crazy about this, there's a book in here that I DNF'd because the author was super arrogant and it was really annoying to me. But when it came to Rousseau, I think it was different because he's an actual genius. Like, I'm pretty sure before this book he had wrote Emily, which is a philosophical work about education, how you should teach children. But when he was writing this, it felt like he just felt like he was on top of the world. And usually I don't like that, but when it came to him, it was like, honestly, I'm giving him a pass because you're an actual genius. Like, I'm a huge Kanye fan, so kind of ride the same line. But one thing I will say, he was kind of oversharing in this book. There's a lot of stuff Rousseau was saying in here that I did not need to know. Still a good read though. Definitely read it if you can. All right, let me get some more books here. All right, next book I got here, Prince Machiavelli. Great book. Now, it is classified as philosophy, and honestly, it is philosophy, but I just saw it more as a commentary on leadership. Like, it wasn't really written as a philosophical work to me. Like, it was much more of like it just felt like he was talking about leadership, which is still, it was really good to me. A lot of stuff we have now conceptually when it comes to leadership, like, should we like lead with a foregoing hand? Like, should we involve people around us in our leadership? Should it just be one person? All those are touched on in this book. And honestly, I think this is where a lot of people get leadership tactics from. So it was cool in that aspect. But one thing I will give this book more than over what the book was about itself was Machiavelli himself. I love Machiavelli. His writing style was cool. He's another one of those pencil drawer writers. But Machiavelli himself was probably one of the coolest figures I've ever seen. Like, I researched him after reading it. Like, I'm a big Tupac fan, so his name being Machiavelli, I was like, I know the name before. And like, obviously he faked his death, which is super cool. They called him the agent of the devil, which is crazy. Like, that's a crazy thing. I rebuke that. Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. But like, it's just cool. That's so cool to think about. Like, he's an actual, like, he has a whole like mystique about him. But he's super cool. Please pick up The Prince. Honestly, you guys have probably read it before. But if you haven't, it's worth the read. Next book, Siddhartha. Another book that probably should be in here because I read some of it in this year, but I didn't finish it because I've already read it before. But it was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and this book also rides that same line. Oh, this is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I don't know if I said it. But it's another one of those like journey narratives when it's like follow this one character to the end, and it's like there's not really anyone else. Like, people are involved, but it's all just to help the one guy. Like in The Alchemist, Santiago is chasing his personal legend. In this book, Siddhartha is chasing his enlightenment, which is it's the same thing really. I just think Siddhartha is just more actually not philosophical. I think Alchemist is more philosophical and Siddhartha is more spiritual. But they're both really good and they both kind of ride the same line. So if you like Alchemist, read Siddhartha, you'll enjoy it just as much. And this is also another one of those, obviously Hermann Hesse wasn't an Eastern thinker, but he had to write in the form of an Eastern thinker to get Siddhartha really down. And once again, I just like all the peaceful tranquility that comes with reading Eastern lit. But hey, read Siddhartha, you'll really enjoy it. That's one book that I probably have recommended the most out of any book I've read, just because it's so easy to get into and you'll really enjoy it. So once again, read it. Next book I got, actually, let's do this one first. Next book I got The Stranger by Albert Camus. You'll see why Swissy is in a minute. But The Stranger is Camus' first novel. It's where he introduced absurdism, which a brief synopsis of that, just so you know what I'm talking about. Absurdists believe that the world itself is not inherently absurd, and the human mind is not inherently absurd, but when they come together, it's a conflict of interest which makes the absurd. So diving deeper into it, it's the world has no meaning, the mind is trying to find meaning, but they can't come to an actual conclusion, so that makes the absurd. So it's another branch off of more nihilist thinking, which to me is super fascinating. Like, I'm not really a nihilist, but I have some nihilistic thoughts. It's not too deep into it yet, but I definitely have some parts of my worldview where I think, like, this is meaningless. So when reading this, it was definitely eye-opening to what that comes with, really. In this book, we follow a nameless character. Like, they call him Result, but that's his last name. We don't know his first, like, we don't know his full name. And it's about a man that doesn't care about anything. He was walking around literally saying, like, okay, like, well, my mom passed away today. My dog died. Like, just real, like, okay, it's all good. And then when part 2 happens and it switches, I won't spoil what happens, but in part 2, like, it gets really, like, it starts picking up after that. And I think the last chapter of The Stranger is probably one of the best written chapters that I've ever read so far. But that leads me into the next book, which is Myth of Sisyphus, which is basically, whenever in The Stranger, when you think of, if nothing matters, then why am I even living, basically. Like, that's the conclusion that you would come from when you read The Stranger. And a lot of philosophers, this is why I like Camus so much, is because he addressed that instantly. Like, it wasn't like he said something super detrimental or dark and then didn't talk about it for another 20 years and never spoke about it again. Like, his next book addressed that feeling, and that's Myth of Sisyphus, where the first chapter he's talking about, like, suicide and, like, ways to cope with the world not being meaningful, like the world being meaningless, how to cope with that. And he compares life to Sisyphus, who is, once again, I'm a Greek myth head, I love it. But Sisyphus was in Tartarus, which in Tartarus is like an eternal punishment where you do the same thing over and over. And Sisyphus' thing was he had to push a boulder up a hill, and if he got to the top of the hill and pushed the boulder over, he would get out of Tartarus. But the second he would get it to the top, it would fall right back down. And he compared that to life, saying life is meaningless the same way Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill doesn't matter at all. There's no point in him doing it. But he has to do it because there's this inherent hope to, like, what if I get it up there this time? So he's saying that's life. He's saying life's inherently meaningless, but to look at it in a certain way. And this is his actual, probably best Camus quote ever. He's saying, imagine Sisyphus with a smile on his face. So it's kind of like almost twisting the system, saying, okay, but what if I enjoy it? What if Sisyphus enjoyed pushing the boulder up the hill? Like, it's a subtle mindset shift that's super interesting to think about. But that's just part 1 of the book. There's also the Minotaur section in this book. I think I had extra essays, but you'll definitely enjoy it. Please read this book. Read both these, actually. I think I have another Camus book in here as well. And I haven't read The Fall fully, and I haven't read The Plague at all. But I need to read both of those as well. But read these for sure. Alright, gotta get this next little batch. Alright, next book I got here is Sentimental Education by Flaubert. Now, this guy, he's probably next to Bradbury when it comes to like abstract writing. Like, when I was reading this, it felt like I wasn't reading at all. It was much more of like it's just, he's painting a picture, basically. Like, when it came to Sentimental Education, it was like watching a movie in my head, because every word, it just flowed so perfectly. And I can see it, because some people don't like realistic or like realism type of writing. But when I was reading it, it felt like I was watching a movie. It was so beautiful. I don't want to do on my rankings in this video, I already said that, but this will definitely be like in my top 10, if probably maybe higher. Just really enjoyed it. If you like the movie Wolf of Wall Street, you'll love this book. So if you like that movie, read this book. Next book is what I like to say is the best written book that I've read. And to me, Toni Morrison is the best writer I've read. Bluest Eye, Toni Morrison, master class. When it comes to the Bluest Eye, I don't think I've read a better written book than this. It just felt like the word choice was perfect, and she didn't waste a single sentence. Like, the story follows Nicola, but we learned about Charlie, Marie, like Baby Boy. Like, we learned about a lot of different other people that, like, they all formed into what Nicola was supposed to be. Like, I just loved how it was so multi-generational, and we learned all these different generations, but it all led to this one girl, one Nicola. And just a brief synopsis, like, I haven't been doing too much of the story so far, but I feel like I have to for this book. Nicola is a girl, she's a little black girl, beautiful black girl, but she wants blue eyes, which is a metaphor of she wants whiteness, basically. She wants to be seen as pretty or perfect, because she sees that's all she sees in her world. And she thinks having blue eyes will make her feel like, not even feel like a white girl, but be perceived as one in society. Like the whole theme of neglection and identity crisis and a lot of tough topics like that are all mastered in this book. Like imagine Bacall was seeing like, all she sees is Shirley Temple with blue eyes. She has a doll that's white with red hair with blue eyes. Like all the magazines on the cover of Bread, like all she sees is these little girls with blue eyes and she thinks that she's less than because of what she sees in society. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was one of the books that really, this book and Of Mice and Men, the ending of Mice and Men and this whole book, it was so sad to me. Masterclass book. Miss Toni Morrison, you're the one. Please read this. Please read this. I haven't read Beloved, Sula, Jazz, Song of Solomon. I haven't read another Morrison since then, but I need to read Beloved next. I might put that on a TBR for probably January. Next book, Bridge of St. Louis Ray by Thornton Wilder. So this book won the Pulitzer Prize, I think 1929, if I'm not mistaken. I'll put it on this video. But this is another book that I read probably about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago maybe. But it was like another one of those, this book is amazing. I told myself I wasn't going to just talk about too much of the story, but I have to with some of these books. This book is probably my top 5 favorite books of all time, if not like 5 or 6 fringe. But there's a Peruvian bridge that falls and 5 people fall with the bridge. And then Brother Juniper, he's a religious man, hyper-religious man, sees that and says, there's no way that's not an act of God. And he goes his whole life with like 5 different parts of the book that represent the 5 people that died with the bridge. And he's literally saying like, he's like going through every person trying to prove that this is not a coincidence. It was so good. Like you'll definitely enjoy it. It touches on topics like fate, topics on divine intervention, like just a lot of beautiful stuff. You'll enjoy it. Please read it. If there's one book I recommend you most, I would say it's not my favorite book ever, but it's a short read that's easy to get into. This and Siddhartha are my 2 most recommended books from this video so far. Please read it. Next one I got here, The Rebel, Camus. Once again, another Camus. I love all Camus stuff. I've only read 3 of them so far and some of The Fall, but it's just, he's amazing. And there's only so much I can say about it. Like, a lot of his books, this book didn't have too much absurdism in it. I think that's much more of Sisyphus and The Fall and then Stranger. But this is another essay that talks about just rebellion in life. Not really rebelling against something per se, but much more of the inherent rebellion spirit. It kind of rides the same line as Will to Power to me. Like it's talking about like, I think it was called the urge to revolt, which is like the concept he was talking about a lot in the book. And it's not the same thing as the Will to Power, but it kind of gave me the same kind of vibe. Another great, because I think Camus is also a great mythology head because he also did the same thing he did in Sisyphus in this book. But this time he called it the Promethean paradox. Who Prometheus was, I think he was a titan, not a god, but he was a titan that, he's the one that gave humans fire. But the Promethean struggle, Promethean paradox is, like he was a titan so he belonged on Olympus, or he belonged above the humans. But he saw the humans and saw they needed something. And it's like the cognitive dissonance, or like the fight in your mind saying, should I give this to them when I belong up here? It's called the Promethean paradox. Like it's brought up a lot when it comes to parenting. Like when parents need to give something to their child, like they're the parent, but I want to give this to my kid. Like you can really get deep into it. But I'm rambling a lot, but I really enjoyed this book. You'll definitely enjoy it. If I had to rank Camus books, Rebel's probably number 2. I'd probably go Sisyphus number 1, Rebel, Stranger. I haven't finished The Fall yet, but it's probably gonna be 4, and then I haven't read The Play. But please read it, you'll enjoy it. Next book, probably, I just finished this recently. I finished it 2 weeks ago, maybe like a week and a half actually. But The Will to Power by Nietzsche was like, this was the first real like dense philosophy book that I've read. Like Republic was dense, Consolation and Philosophy was dense really, but Nietzsche just writes a certain way. It's almost like he does it on purpose, but it was just like a hard to read. And it wasn't hard as in like I couldn't do it. It was hard like, this is something I need to sit down and give my full attention to. But he critiques nihilism, he critiques religion, critiques mortality. He critiques a lot, or not mortality, morality. He talks about the will to power as an art, which is like, the will to power is basically the, I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, but like the driving and like indubitable human spirit that we have. Like almost like the urge to be human, which is something I'll get into in the next book, which is why I have these 2 back to back. And it's just a great read. I really enjoyed Nietzsche's writing style. Once again, it was super like bleak and dark, but that's all I read all day, just sad, bleak, depressing stuff. But I'm gonna do I have to do a philosophy video. I think me making this video has proven to me that a philosophy video is mandatory for me to do. And in that video, this is probably gonna be the first book that I talk about because I have so much to say about it. And the next book I here is Notes from Running Ground by Dostoevsky. So when I first started reading, Dostoevsky was the first author that I wanted to read. And that's why this book has a special place in my heart, because when I first started reading, I tried to pick up Notes from Underground and I couldn't get past page 2. And it almost made me feel like less than, like I probably shouldn't be reading stuff this hard. But I picked it up. I have a book club now. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I have a book club. If you want to join it, I'll probably put a link somewhere on this video or in the caption or bio or whatever. But I read it with the book club, and I felt so accomplished when I finished it. I was like, I'm actually progressing. I felt proud of myself. This is also the first book I annotated, so I'll show you guys real quick. But I had some annotations on, like, I really tried to like really get into the book and really annotated every page. Like I was really proud of myself when I was reading it. And honestly, I really resonated with this book a lot. Like I think I said it earlier, my favorite movie ever is Taxi Driver. And part 2 of this book, I think it's called Apropos, I think that's how you say it, Wet Snow. And it really reminded me of Taxi Driver because it's about a man that's secluded and what that can do to someone, like someone being so lonely, what that could do to somebody. And Taxi Driver is done really well, but I think it's done almost better in this because it adds on the element of an intelligent man. So in Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle he's almost dumb. He's not really smart. And it shows him being lonely, what that could really affect and how it could really go left in your life. But in this book, it adds on a layer of you being a genius. Like the narrator in this book, he's unnamed, but he's an actual genius. He's like paralyzed by his intellect. And him being so smart and so knowledgeable of things causes him to live in this eternal purgatory state. And the purgatory really starts with the fact that, like we see in the beginning of the book, his biggest critique of society is intentional inaction. So knowing you should do something, you don't do it. But the paradox comes later on when we realize that's what he does every day. Like he sits in a corner in Petersburg, that's what he calls it. And he'll sit and think about these elaborate things in his head saying, I should have done this. But he doesn't do it because his intellect will prevent him from action. But then it's even added on crazier when you think of the other side of that being his intellect also gets him out of these little thoughts. So like he'll sit in a corner of his room and think, man, I should do something. His intellect says, get up and do it then. But then his intellect will also say, I don't want to do it, and it paralyzes him. It's like an eternal paradox. It was so cool to read. And the biggest thing I want to touch on with Notes from Underground, I'm talking a lot about this book, but it was really good. He critiques rationalism in this book, or more of like the rationalist thinkers, and he's saying that even if you put all of our decisions into a perfect chart saying this will be the best life for you to live and put it into a perfect chart that everyone gets, he's saying humans will deny that and do something else even though it's not best for them. Like they will deny the best outcome because they want to prove to themselves that they're human. So he's basically saying a human that's inherently human that wants to drive to be human will look at that chart and be like, that's a perfect chart, that's a perfect life, but I'm going to choose to do something else because I want to prove that I'm a human. Super cool to think about. It was super fascinating. But I'm reading Dostoevsky probably some more next year. Probably going to pick up The Idiot first and probably Karamazov later. Loved it though. Please read this. Yeah, I'm saving these two for last, for sure. This book I read was Self-Examination by Kierkegaard. Now, Kierkegaard's probably my second favorite philosopher of all time at this point. And this book talks about a lot about how to really critique yourself and judge yourself. So, because it says in scripture, probably one of the more famous Bible verses is that don't judge anyone else lest you be judged. So basically, take the log out of your eye, take the speck out of someone else's. Beautiful concept, beautiful scripture. Love the scriptures. Love the scriptures. But basically, this whole book isn't like a whole like branch off of that. Not even branch off, a whole expounding of that. It talks about how to accurately judge yourself, like seeing what makes you sober in thought, like seeing how you can critique yourself in certain ways to where you can be more Christ-like. Kierkegaard was very religious, and I really love that about him. I'm currently reading Fear and Trembling. I might do a whole section at the end of this video with the books I'm currently reading. They're over there. But I really enjoyed this. This is like a cool little, it's a Princeton University Press book. So I don't know if you guys can find this exact copy, but get Self-Examination by Kierkegaard. You'll really enjoy it. I don't read self-help at all. I don't think that really affects me in any way. But this is probably the closest thing to a self-help book that I've ever read, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not done with this book. I'm going to put this over here, actually. But I will do this one. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins. I also read What Diantha and When I Was the Witch. It's two of the short stories in this book. Those are also good. I recommend reading those as well, especially When I Was the Witch. What Diantha was also really good, but it was okay. But Yellow Wallpaper to me is probably like in my top 2 to 3 short stories ever. Absolutely loved it. And I got recommended it because it's my favorite book of all time, which I'm saving until the end of this video. But it rides the same line of touching on someone that's suffering through psychosis and spiraling. Another depressing book, but I really enjoyed it. And basically, like, the woman she's on rest cure in this house, and the walls are all, it's like a yellow wallpaper that surrounds the whole wall, and it's like it's a reflection of her mental state. So early in the book, we see the walls deteriorating, and she's literally saying, well, the walls are deteriorating today. And when you first start reading it, you don't know the walls represent her. So you're like, oh, well, that's kind of boring. Like, what is it really talking about? But once you realize that it's talking about her, and you go back and read it again, it's like freaky to read, because it's like a physical depiction of her mental state on the wall, but she's still herself, but she doesn't know that the wall represents her. So when she's really looking at the wall saying, well, the wall seems worse than yesterday today, it's talking about her getting worse mentally. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I really enjoyed this. I also think as a commentary on the patriarchy, like her husband would come up there and talk to her and like just be like, kind of just brush her off, like not listen to her fully. Like it was really annoying. He was really annoying. Bad character. Well written, but I just didn't like the character. And another thing I want to touch on is just Charlotte Perkins herself. She was really cool backstory. Rest in peace, obviously, but she was just very interesting. I think you guys will really enjoy her backstory and read Yellow Wallpaper. You'll enjoy it. Actually, gotta save it for last. Sorry, you gotta wait. Now, this is a book that I finished recently. It's not really a book. It's a Langston Hughes collected poems. So when I get poetry books, I only had 2 of them, but I kind of chip away at them like daily. Like I don't try and read it like it's just like let me get through it kind of thing. So I kind of read a few of them every single day. But my favorites of this poetry book is definitely Harlem, Dear Lovely Death, The English, Irish Wake, Goodbye Christ. There's a lot of like, Goodbye Christ was a really tough one for me to read, but there's just a lot of really good ones in here that you guys will really enjoy. Like my favorite poem ever, outside of Sylvia's stuff, would be Dear Lovely Death. I really enjoyed that poem. But I love Langston Hughes' writing. Definitely a Renaissance guy. You could definitely tell that he was like a part of the new Negro movement, saying like, yo, we're back in the forefront. I really enjoyed it. But all right, we've come to the end. And this is where, actually, yeah, let's do it. This time. So my favorite writer ever, it's not close really. It's close with Kafka a little bit. But Sylvia Plath, to me, is the greatest writer of all time. And I'm going to start with the novel that got me into her, the novel that got everyone into her, the only novel she ever wrote. The Bell Jar, Sylvia Plath. This is the greatest book ever written. So once again, I'm really big on sad media, and I really saw myself in Esther a lot, and I think it was just really like, and I've just never seen depression and spiraling done so well. Like it was beautiful. Like obviously Sylvia was like a tortured, really troubled soul, but when you put into perspective that this book is like semi-autobiographical, and it says in her journals, which I also have, it says in her journals that she didn't want to give the depression like life and meaning by writing about it. So she wrote in a fiction way instead of a biography or an autobiography, and wrote it through Esther Greenwood instead of herself. So when you read the book in that way, it's like, it's just so sad and it's so demanding. Like you have to read it and really give your full attention because you feel like you're doing Esther a disservice. Like it's amazing. Please read this book. I've never read anything like this in my entire life. I'm planning on getting the last line in this book is, I sat back and listened to the old brag of my heart. I am. I want to get that tattoo somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to get it, but I'm going to get it soon. Go. Greatest book ever, greatest author ever. And then this stuff right here, this is her collected poems. I read all her poems. My favorite poems from her are probably Ariel, Daddy, Lady Lazarus, Wuthering Heights. Someone sent me In Plaster. In Plaster is really good too. But all her poems are great. I think she's just an amazing writer. I also read her short stories. This is Johnny Panic and the Bible of Dreams. And other short stories. Like Stone Boy with the Dolphin, All the Dead Deers. There's a lot of short stories in here. She's just so good. She's so good. Please read her. And then my favorite stuff by her, The Bell Jar is my favorite stuff by her. My second favorite is definitely her journals. Her journals were so insightful. And you see like the mindset and the mind frame of someone that could write something as powerful as The Bell Jar. Like when you read The Bell Jar, you're going to see like how can someone get to a mindset to even write something like this. And when you read her journals, it's like it gives you that mentality of someone that's that troubled being able to write something that dark. Like it's so beautiful. It's like, I'm just a big fan of art and I really enjoy it. And I just got to give someone credit that can put themselves into a deep, dark mind state like that and make something that beautiful out of it. Like, it's just so good. Please read Sylvia's stuff. I don't have her, it's called Crossing the River. I'm pretty sure I don't have that, but I do have Red Comet. But I want all of Sylvia's stuff. I want a whole section of my library to be Sylvia Plath. She's just amazing. Please read her. Like, I don't even know what to say. I can talk about Sylvia for like probably an hour and just be straight a Sylvia video. But that's all the books that I read in 2024. Now, these are 2 books that I DNF'd. I'll talk about those real quickly. So Invisible Man, I DNF'd at like page 10. But it's because I read this too early. Like Ralph's writing was too much for me when I started reading. And I'm going to spin back on it probably soon. I might read it probably end this year or early next year. Just for something to read because I know it's really good. And I know if I go back to it, I'll enjoy it even more. So it was a DNF, but it's because I wasn't ready. But now I'm ready to read it. So I'm excited to get back into this. And the next book I got is On the Road by Jack Kerouac. I did not like this book. I read this probably a month ago. Like I was fully into my reading journey. I just didn't enjoy it. And it was because this is the book I was talking about with Rousseau's Confessions. It just felt like an arrogant man talking about life But it was different in Confessions because Confessions had a lot of profound stuff in it. And it was clear Rousseau was a genius. But like, Couriac to me was just kind of like, I don't know. It was just, I won't even say I didn't like it. It was just, I couldn't finish it. I was just like, I want to read something else now, basically. Like, it's okay. It's okay. But I do think the writing style was good, though. So that's one, I don't want to give, like, me saying I didn't like it doesn't mean you don't read it. I think you should read everything. And the writing style was good in it. So I think the writing is a good pro. So if you enjoy Jack Couriac and I read On the Road, please read On the Road. You'll probably enjoy it more than I did. And honestly, I might try and reread it again. Just because I don't like the fact that there's one book I don't like out of all the books that I read. Like, I don't like that. But I had to mention these two. These are two books that I DNF'd. And I might as well just do the books that I'm currently reading. So hold on. So in the book club right now, we're reading Stoner by John Williams. Absolutely loving it so far. It's just like, it's like the best depiction of a normal life that I've ever read. Probably ever seen, even in media in general. Like, there's a lot of movies that depict like a normal life, like, you know, stuff like that. But I think it's just really well done. I really like the writing style. And I think it's good. Right now, there's a lot of insightful stuff in the book club that I'm going to read after I finish chapter 5 or 6. But it's really good so far. I can't give you too much about it. I'm still reading it, but I'm really liking it so far. Next book I'm reading is Fear and Trembling by Kierkegaard, which is my first book I read after self-examination. And I can't lie, this book is on pace to be like, if not my favorite book of all time, in the top 3. Like, it's the first book that's really making me sit down and really have to like, it kind of feels like Nietzsche. Like, Nietzsche was another one that was really like, this is something I have to sit down and give my full attention to. And it's another one of those books. It's basically like a retelling and a deep dive into the Abraham Isaac story, which is God told Abraham to kill his son. And then Abraham was going to do it. God stopped him and said, I'm granting you the nations. This is when he becomes the father of nations and said, you are faithful to me, I'm going to give you the world, basically. But it deep dives into that, and what I just got to the part of the book where he's talking about the leap of faith, the great leap of faith, which is a concept that Kierkegaard says that we need to have as Christians to really follow the faith. Just cool stuff. You really enjoy it. I'm really enjoying it right now. I'll probably be done with it today, so I'll let you guys know how I like that one. Next two are Aquinas. Aquinas is probably my second or third favorite philosopher. Kierkegaard's probably number 1 at this point. Aquinas 2, maybe Rousseau 3. Actually, I finished Treatise of Happiness already. It should have been in the main part of the video, but I just mentioned it with Selected Writings. But right now I'm currently reading Selected Writings, which is just like on ethics, on the teacher, on morals, on kingship. Basically just a lot of Aquinas' essays and just writings on certain topics. But I love Aquinas' writing style. He writes in a scholastic way where he'll like pose a question and there's like 4 or 5 rebuttals at the end of it. But the thing is that's different about Aquinas is that all the rebuttals are just as profound as the question was, which is rare in philosophy. Like sometimes the question will be super profound and then the responses are like, they're kind of not surface level, but they're just not as profound as the question was. Not with Aquinas. Aquinas feels like a smart man saying one question, and then it feels like 4 distinct persons are rebuttaling that one question just as profound as the question was. It's so cool to read. And the Treatise on Happiness was really good. I finished this early. I don't know why it wasn't the main part of the video. But this is what made me get into Aquinas itself. I really enjoyed this, and that's when I got to Selected Writings. But I'm currently reading this right now. I'll tell you guys how I like it in the philosophy video I make. In another book I'm reading right now, it's kind of on the back burner right now, though. Like, I'm reading Stoner and Fear and Trembling the most right now. But the book of This Quiet by Pessoa, I'm really loving it. I just haven't had time to read it recently because I'm reading something else. But I might honestly, like, restart the book when I get back into it because I don't want to forget too much about it. But it's like dreamy, like it's like an almost ruminating, ethereal kind of writing. Like he like writes like it's just super lofty and dreamy. I really enjoy it. I've never read anything like it. It's definitely something that's super interesting and super different. So if you really like more dreamy types of feelings and writing styles, you'll love Pessoa. And the last one, my dad's a big reader, and my mom and my little brother want to get into reading, so I told them to start a family book club. And right now we're reading Colson Whitehead's Underground Railroad. I'm 50 pages in. I started 50 pages. My dad's kind of farther into the book, but I'm really enjoying it so far. It's different than everything else I'm reading because it's not. I read a lot of classics in philosophy, so reading something that was more modern, it was like interesting to me. But it's really good. I love the writing style. I just love how it's like it's kind of hard to read sometimes because it's a tough topic, obviously. But it's really good. Like amazing book. And the last but the greatest book I want to mention that I'm also reading. I read it every day. The Bible. Read the Bible, get right with God. Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. I'll pray for all of you guys. Now, this is the greatest book ever. I don't even want to compare it to any other book. I think the writing is amazing in it. Proverbs, probably the best written book of all time. I can talk about the Bible forever. But this is what I'm reading every day. I had added into the video because we're talking about books and it's the greatest book ever. But that's everything I read in 2024. Thank you guys for watching this video. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this, so I'll probably have like links. But follow me on all the stuff that I put up. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this, but just follow all my links on Instagram, stuff like that. More videos definitely coming. I just got the camera, so I'm excited about it and I have a lot to say. I think my next 2 videos are gonna be the philosophy video, where I talk about the books that I've read in more philosophical works and really dive deep into the themes, the philosophical topics and concepts they bring up. Just an overall deeper dive into those books, because I feel like I didn't do them justice in this video. And then I'll probably do a video where I do my top 10, 15 favorite books, like ranked. I'll probably try and rank the books. Even though I don't like ranking art, I'll try it for these videos. Then I might do a 2025 TBR. But that's really what I got planned, and that's really all I got to say. But love you guys for watching this video sincerely. Now I got to find a way to, I got to put all these books back. But I love you guys. Be blessed.